Okay.
My voice is clear.
Yeah, it's pristine. All right, let's get started.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the stream to catch.
I'm going to be eating cheesecake in between, so I hope you don't mind.
What happened to your dieting?
No, this is keto cheesecake.
Oh wow, nice. All right, we are live
Yeah.
now.
Hmm.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Friday night, the Startup Operator Weekly Roundup. And yeah, I don't know about how it has been for you guys, but for me, it has been a roller coaster ride. Roshan, how was your week?
It was good. Roller coaster, as you describe it, right? Lots of ups and downs. Man, yeah. So I think you have to sort of like compartmentalize your life a little bit. Is something that I've realized over the last week. Otherwise, it's just like one long road, that you're walking on, and you have no idea of where the pit stop is, what destinations are in between, and so on and so forth. So you just have to sort of compartmentalize things, I guess. So I was happy this week. I got to step out. I kind of went and visited family about 40 kilometers from where I stay. So it was a day long thing. So yeah,
Wow,
cool.
nice, nice. This week for
So
me
what do
was
we
like
have for
long.
this? What do we have for this week, Gunjan?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of funding news coming up, a lot of big plays going into the market as well. But before that, Roshan, like as always, why don't you tell us about the episodes that came out this week?
Yeah. So we have a large enough pipeline of episodes, and we were thinking that, I mean, let's put out one episode a week. And then this week we decided that was a dumb thing to do because people are consuming a lot of the stuff that we put out. So why not put more of that out, right? So, uh,
Yeah.
so the episode with Rasima is something that I recorded maybe 3 weeks back, and the same with Narayanan as well of Avaz. And both sort of came together at the same time, and there are a lot of similarities with both of these episodes, right? So Rasima is an engineer turned consultant turned investor, and she heads BFA Global in India, and she's also part of the Catalyst Fund, which basically
Right.
funds innovation in emerging markets like India, Mexico, Nigeria, and some other parts of LATAM, Africa as well, right? So what I really liked about them is how invested they are in the founders as such. So it's really a grant, and they're not really looking for financial returns as such. So which means that it gives them the wherewithal, it gives them the resources to really put their money in things that they really believe in, right? In founders and ideas that they believe in, and not really be constrained about what is the kind of ROI that you can get, because what happens, especially in the early stage in these kind of situations, let's say when you're building for in agri tech, or when you're building in something around financial inclusion or whatever, the path is not very clear, right? Because a lot of the times you're creating a category or a product which is very nascent, and it doesn't really have a path to success, right? So it's really these type of structures that can cause a lot of impact, and I really like the work that they're doing with BFA and Catalyst. A lot of good stuff, and we got to discuss that in detail. And she has very, very good insights on impact investing. And if anyone is sort of interested in that kind of stuff, then they should definitely check out the episode. What was your
Yeah.
favorite part of the podcast, Gunjan?
Um, so I don't know. I must have had this conversation with you earlier, right? That when I was back in Kolkata, I was trying to do this whole social work myself. First, it was through ISEC, and then after during my college, I was trying to design CSR projects for corporates. Some of the groups I worked with, Merlin projects, and a couple of other NGOs, right? For me, the biggest difficulty was like, see, for me, it was a for-profit, and I did want to earn money like any other college kid out there. But it was really difficult that when you're talking to people about such sensitive issues and you're trying to help people in a social workspace, it difficult to like staying aligned to what's actually going to generate revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was something which I love the way in which Narayanan spoke about it. You
Yeah,
know,
that's something that Narayana has been doing really well with Avaz. Uh, so Avaz is an interesting story, right? So I met Narayanan in 2013 when I was putting together a session for the NASCOM Product Conclave. I mean, I was really, really enthused by the idea because they were for a couple of reasons, right? So one is they're working for a very underserved market, and I mean, if you know people with autism, cerebral palsy, or like similar disorders, it's just really difficult for them to communicate, right? And I put this out in a post recently, which is that imagine you hate a type of food, right? So for me, it is garlic. I can't stand garlic, right? Or imagine, something much, much worse, let's say like abusive behavior or something. And now imagine that, you cannot really find a way to tell this to people. You can't communicate this to people. And imagine that happens, day on day for the rest of your life. I mean, it's a heck of a challenge, I mean, and these guys have been doing some phenomenal work, right? And again, Ajit Narayanan, who is the founder of Avas, and Narayanan Ramakrishnan, both of them are, both of them are hardcore techies. So Ajit is an MIT techie. I think he was recognized in the MIT 35 list as well, right? His innovation. And Narayanan is from Georgia Tech, and they have a bunch of really smart guys who are putting time and energy into solving for this market, right? This very underserved market. And what
right,
I really found heartwarming was some of the stories he said, right? So, which is, I mean, uh, one or two of their users, they figured the first thing they figured to tell people is to tell
the
no,
feedback. Hmm.
right? Is to tell no. And we take this for granted, right? I mean, we say no all the time, but then, I mean, imagine you can't say no, and imagine, this tool gives you the ability to communicate that effectively, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I was really, really blown away. I mean, it's one of those conversations that stayed with me for a long while afterwards. And yeah, I mean, it just makes me believe in capitalism for good, so I really, really love the stuff that these guys are doing. So more power to them.
Yes, well, I mean, I can just go on and on talking about the work which Rasima and Narayan are doing, but let's move on, yeah?
Yeah.
Round up. All right, so first up, again, we have Kaga Scanner, right? It was another startup that was selected under the Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, right? And they have been in the news again for, having close to 2 million 1 to 2 million downloads in just over like 2, 3 days, right? And we
Right.
have seen some amazing growth. Why don't you like tell us about it?
Yeah, so I just found it a little bit funny that they call it an overnight success, because I think the company was established about 5 years back,
Yeah,
and man, I mean, nothing half as meaningful can be an overnight success, and they're in the whole document scanning space, which has sort of become commoditized now. I mean, I know more than a few people who are in this space, especially in the industry that we operate in, financial services, right, where mobile KYC and scanning has become such an important part in the onboarding process, right? To go from 0 to 1 million downloads in that is no joke at all, and they deserve all of the recognition that they're getting for the hardcore execution that they've put in, right? Because really, I mean, it all comes down to that. It all comes down to execution at the end, and Kaga Scanner is a fantastic example of that.
right. No, and also if you look at all the successful startups, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I can't recall who exactly put it, but there are like 3 or 4 key points which really determine how successful a company is. Right? One is definitely about the founder and the founder's experience, the team, the operating model and business model, and then again there's the whole timing of the product. Right?
yeah.
If you were to ask me, I guess it's timing that is absolutely critical in determining how successful a company is. I mean, if you think about it, right?
Mm,
Skype was something we had this discussion earlier. Skype back
right.
in 2007, 8 was it was good. People were using it. But then Zoom today has become a household name, right? It's become an adjective. Hey, let's Zoom each other, right?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
timing in which companies are
Yeah, I
operating
mean, see, I agree with you, but look, timing is something that you have no control of sometimes. I mean, you can put three or four mega trends together and say that, hey, market is going to move this way, but then it's like, every half intelligent thing that you do is half chance at the end of the day, right? And it comes down to that that old proverb, right, which is the harder I work, the luckier I get. So, you could argue that, the whole cam scanner ban with the India-China conflict had a great amount of thing to do with their success, which is sure. I mean, why not, right? But then the fact that they have a product that really works, right, and the
Yeah,
fact that they've executed so hard, you can't ignore that, right? I mean, if
yeah,
it was so easy,
absolutely.
then every other cam scanning app would have would have killed it, right?
Right.
So this is the kind of argument people make for Zoom as well, which is the right place at the right time and everything. But as we discussed last episode at length, I mean, it's also the right product and it's the right team, right? So more power to these guys. I mean, they've done a fantastic job, and all the best.
Yeah. Right. So next, again, we're back to the whole Reliance story. So these
Yeah.
Mukesh Ambani and Jeff Bezos were like recently dubbed as the business rivals by the media, right? And
Hmm.
now we see Reliance extending an arm to Amazon, in terms of partnership, and they're offering like close to $20 billion stake deal from the retail arm. This is coming after the whole consolidation in the future groups, right? Where do you
Yeah.
see this moving into?
See, I think to me, from an Amazon perspective, this is a hedge, basically, right? Because we don't know how regulation is going to change, whether in retail in general, foreign investment as such, right? So I see this as a giant big hedge on two or three different axes, right? So one axis is, let's say, a foreign player being operating in the Indian market itself. The second axis is being a physical retailer, right, having physical stores as a presence, right. But this is going to be really interesting because now it becomes an Amazon Reliance versus a Walmart Flipkart sort of a fight. And of course there are plenty of others, but I mean, it's a very fragmented market, and retail is like, two or three of the biggest, I mean, the largest market in India, right? So it's going to be an interesting thing, but the way, I just come back to the way Mr. Ambani has orchestrated this whole thing, right? So I think he is the man of COVID for me, he I mean, this year, the way he is orchestrated one after another, and I don't just say this as a happy shareholder. I just say this as someone who's just watched from the sidelines for a long while. It's amazing. It's amazing to be able to make these kind of moves at the scale that they operate in, right? I mean, and Gunjan, you and I work for a startup that's about 200 plus people, whatever $1 million in revenue, right? And we understand how difficult change is, and imagine operating at the level of tens of billions of dollars, or at that crazy market cap that they're in right now, 200 plus $1 billion market cap. It's just phenomenal to do these things. And also, talking about the personalities, these two guys are two of my favorites. Slightly different sort of backgrounds, I would say, but the intensity of execution from both of these people is phenomenal, right? Amazon, you know 15, 18 years without a profit, and then has become the sort of company right now which is
The most valuable
I
company in the
mean,
world right now.
exactly, right. I think that's Apple, but yeah, thereabouts, right? So they're fantastic. And then again, Mukesh Ambani is trying to move this entire Reliance brand into a new business, new age sort of a market. And this is exciting times, I would say. Really, this is exciting times from the perspective of what's to come.
Right. No, even for me, it's like super interesting, because if you look at Amazon, Amazon is firstly, it was a product of the dot-com bubble, right? But in the US, they're also slowly venturing out in the brick and mortar stores. They have been
Yeah.
piloting some in San Francisco with automated checkouts and everything. I guess
Hmm.
even the Reliance and Amazon are like direct competitors, at least in the e-commerce space in India.
Hmm.
With the whole geo platform moving into e-commerce and even like food delivery, right? Something which even Amazon is playing into. I guess this partnership will open up a lot of new opportunities for the Indian market, right from your
Yeah,
e-commerce
absolutely.
to
And
your stores.
yeah, see, you bring up an important point, right? At least I am old enough to recall arguments of whether e-commerce will trump physical retail or not. Today, it's not a question at all. I mean, right? Especially in the world of COVID that we're living in, e-commerce is a reality, right? And I mean, Mr. Ambani again senses the where the wind is blowing. So from his perspective as well, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, heck of a thing to
Right.
happen.
All right.
Add to
Next
cart.
we so next we have another company announcing to go IPO by early next year. That's Zomato, right? Again, big players in the Indian market. Amazon is pushing hard to again get into the delivery business. We have Swiggy,
Hmm.
Zomato, Dunzo, in fact, also, right? Gaining
Yeah,
huge popularity because of the whole lockdown.
yeah,
And the way Zomato has been operating has been like crazy, right?
yeah. No, absolutely. And I see a common thread in all of the stuff that we're discussing this week, which is just phenomenal execution. Whether it's Kaga Scanner or Reliance, Amazon, or Zomato, right? At various levels, I mean, it just boils down to fantastic execution. Uh, you know, Zomato is when was it founded? I think it was 10, 12 years old,
10, 12
2007,
years,
8,
right? Yeah,
right?
yeah,
To last that long in a business, again, I don't want to stress my age, but I do remember a time when there were dozens of such food directories and other sort of listings and category sites and so on and so forth, right? And you can't remember too many that are alive at this point of time, because it's a sort of a very commoditized business. Very little IP, very difficult to build IP, in fact, right? In this, or value in this business. And they have built it on the back of just phenomenal execution, right? Whether it's their brand, with all of the fantastic things that they do. In fact, I mean, I spoke to Jesse Paul last week, who we will have on. I mean, we'll publish that podcast sometime next week, right? And she spoke about their advertising, for example, right? Uh, so they recently launched this period leaves,
right.
and they got
The
a lot
first
of
Indian
attention for
startup.
that. And you look at things that they've done before as well. So they've advertised on Pornhub, for example, right? And they got a lot of attention for that. Now they are they're very, very good at doing these things. They're very good at the positioning their brand, so on and so forth, right? um, and also, uh, the thing that struck me is, in in 2019 the burn rate was something around 50 to 60 million dollars a month, apparently. And right now, I mean, in July they're down to $1 million a month, right?
Yeah,
And they have said that 80% of their pre-COVID business is back. So which is just amazing. I mean, if these numbers are to be believed, they're just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I think there's going to be a ton of money for the employees as well through ESOPs. I think something of the order of around 300 crores, right? So which
yeah,
which again is a very, very positive thing to happen for the startup ecosystem as well, which is the whole wealth creation aspect of it, right? So again, huge props to Deepinder Goyal, one of the better founders in India, and Zomato, which is one of the best companies, obviously best startups in India at this point of time.
right. So yeah, like I guess in a statement released by Dipinder, right? He said that they've
Hmm.
close to around $600 million in their bank, right? Which kind of
Hmm.
gives them a huge runway as well.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
we can expect some really fast mergers and acquisitions coming up from Zomato with the whole IPO.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is they were kind of late to the party with the food delivery part of it. I mean, where I
They
really
started off
feel
as a
at some.
listing. They started
Yeah,
off
it
as a
started out
listing.
as a listing, but I somewhere feel that a Swiggy should not exist, right? Because ideally Zomato should have captured that market. You know,
Yeah.
Swiggy is another amazing company, right? Again, built on solid execution and product, right? But really, I mean, they just stole that market from Zomato, and Zomato was late for that, right? Uh, so I really feel that while they were late for it, I mean, they're trying to make strides for it, strides in that segment, right? So yeah, I mean, they need a war chest, man. I mean, this is not a business that's easy to operate in. You have to spend on acquisition, right? It's going to be tight for sure. It's going to be tight. So they will need all of the money to sort of take that business going forward.
Yep. Excited to see how this plays out. Okay. So next we have this really interesting tweet, right? By Pankaj that's saying how GreyOrange Robotics have confirmed a fundraise of $100 million with a over 700 million valuation, right? And this too from a
Hmm.
hardware company, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, uh, it's funny, okay? Anytime we talk about CRM for retail or sales automation for retail, the thing that we bump into is that all of the inventory and wholesale systems are at the next evolution, which is robotics, IoT, AI, and so on and so forth, right? And
Yeah.
usually, CRM providers or whatever think it's too much of a pain to integrate with these systems. And for good reason, right? Because they are actually on the edge of all of the innovation that's happening, and Grey Orange is one of those companies, again, that's at the edge of innovation in this whole inventory management and stuff, right? And they've obviously become more relevant now because you want person-free operations, right? So all of the robotics comes into focus at this point of time. So while they're a great business and their execution aside, building a hardware startup, I mean, you have to sort of give it to them. Building a hardware startup, and that too in India, is just again, I mean, it's one of those really really difficult things to do. You can't really that build, innovate, and ship cycle is just so much longer, right? It's so much riskier. You can't really fail fast, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not just a question of an app crash or things to that effect. I mean, it's a lot more than that, because these things are really critical. There's an element of safety, element of compliance, and a lot of dollar on the line, right? So yeah, props to them that they've been able to operate in this market and build out a fantastic solution in this market.
Yep. And they're also the largest automation company in India. So, I mean,
Oh
great stuff.
wow, yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know how old they are. They're probably about 7 or 8 years old. I mean, I've been hearing about them for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that old of a startup as well. It's founded in 2010, 11, I guess. So it's pretty young still.
Yeah. So that's 8 or 9 years old. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
moving on. Again, so this was a YouTube video which you had shared in our group,
Yeah.
right? On how measure doesn't necessarily just because you're having great output doesn't mean you should focus only on that. But what you need to actually think about is how you reached that result, you know. So
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of things to talk about this, so why don't you just go ahead?
Yeah. So see, we exist in a very outcome-driven culture, and uh, it's always about, hey, what happened, right, or what did you achieve, and things to that effect. And and it's a good thing, right? So you should treat outcomes as a sort of a north pass. You need to be able to uh, move towards something, right? Or you need to be able to have a measure of whether you're doing good, bad, or you could do better, right? So from that perspective, having an outcome focus is absolutely important. Um, but then, I mean, people tend to forget all of the other really important things, which are the input variables, right? So at Waymo, we say, activities lead to outcomes, right? And we say this about sales, saying that, hey, I mean, if you prioritize the right prospects, if you engage them at the correct time, and if you talk or if you pitch your product in the correct manner, then sales is incidental, right?
Yeah.
Then the fact that sales or the fact that closing a customer as an outcome is incidental. And you can pretty much boil that down to everything, right? Because what I notice is sometimes is that people tend to are just hoping for a hallelujah. I mean, they're just hoping for a miracle to happen. And so that's one thing. One thing is that hoping for something out of the extraordinary to happen on one side, and on the other side is like, okay, because I have to deliver outcomes, I will deliver outcomes that are achievable, right?
Right.
When I say outcomes that are achievable, that's just code for outcomes that are average, right? So I will talk about all of, as a marketer, I will talk about all of the wonderful leads I will give you, right? I will talk about all of the wonderful activities I do, how many campaigns I ran, and so on and so forth, right? It's another thing that maybe, I mean, it doesn't result in revenue, maybe, right? But I
Mhm.
will talk about all of those things. And that's really what the market is about, actually. I mean, if you talk to a lot of these people, they just hung up on like things that really don't matter. I mean, they're hitting their numbers, I'm sure, but then, I mean, how much do those numbers really matter, right? But it's also, I mean, I can really empathize with that mindset as well, because I mean, you think about what their leaders are asking them, right?
Right.
How are their leaders measuring up to them? Their leaders are, again, I mean, they're asking them to be successful for something which has no precedent at all, right? See, if you're trying to do anything half as meaningful, you're going to be doing it for the first time, and you're going to be putting a lot of effort, time, and whatever, right? I mean, it's going to be stupendously hard to achieve some of these things, whether it's like go to market or whatever it is, right? So you need a leader who says, hey, you know what, put your best foot forward, let's put our minds together and let's run really, really hard, okay? And let's try to get 1, 2, and 3 done, and if that doesn't lead to those outcomes, we'll think about it later, no problem, we'll
This is
revise.
something like
Because
which we also sorry, this is something
yeah,
which we also follow like very deeply within our team, at least in Vimo, right?
yeah,
Whereas we do a cognizant of the fact and what things we're putting our efforts to in our
yeah,
efforts in. We see what outcomes we're getting, and we again revisit our input parameters, right? We know what's
exactly.
working, what's not, and we just keep on optimizing that.
Exactly. It's really important to iterate, man. I mean, it's not so it's really important to iterate, and you're able to iterate and question yourself only if you question those outcomes that you're getting, right? If those outcomes are really meaningful or not, right? And I mean, it's a much needed emphasis on inputs. And Keith Rebois is one of those legends, uh, so he's one of those legends. I mean, he is on the cap table of Open Door, DoorDash, Airbnb. I mean, he's gonna make bank this year with all of those IPOs happening, right? And he's a real legend. I mean, he's one of the original PayPal mafia guys. He's an amazing guy and very outspoken as well. So I definitely recommend that you follow him on Twitter @Rebois. And yeah, that's I really, 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 really think that this is super important to put as much, if not more, emphasis on inputs than outputs.
All right, so I guess that take brings us towards the end of it. We have two really exciting new episodes coming out this week. Roshan, why don't you just quickly give us an overview of it? What can people expect from these two episodes?
Yeah. Both of these women, I had a lot of fun talking to, and I really learned a ton from both of them, right? So Amanda heads partnerships at Buffer, and Buffer operates in the whole social media marketing slash automation space, right? Which is super crowded. I mean, you will find like a ton of companies that are like $1 million+ in revenue, right? And 90% of them you wouldn't even have heard of, right? And in that world, to carve a name for yourself, to make a brand for yourself, is a phenomenal thing, and Buffer has been able to do that very, very creatively with a bunch of things that they do, right? So for example, the fact that they're completely remote, okay?
Yeah,
So they've been remote before all of us had to become remote,
yeah,
uh, and yeah, so Amanda has had a great career. So she was a marketing executive at a few places. She then moved on to what was that? Shopify. She was taking care of partnerships in Shopify, and then she moved to Buffer, right? So I really spoke to her about how partnerships can be like a one-to-end sort of a multiplier, about building that Buffer ecosystem, and really about remote work, as in how do they execute? Because there's a lot that Buffer and their team can teach the rest of us. Um, about how to operate in this remote work scenario, right? So one of the things that she mentioned was asynchronous communication, which I have used afterwards a lot, and I think that's super important as well. She did mention a few tools and stuff like that, which obviously we'll link in the podcast, but a great listen for anyone interested in partnerships and figuring out this whole remote work situation that we're in. Okay. So Jesse Paul
With Jesse.
was a legit fanboy moment for me, because one of the first marketing books that I picked up. I don't read a lot of marketing books. I rather prefer reading philosophy or other kinds, fiction or whatever it is, and really picking up stories and picking up threads that I can apply to other spheres of life, right? Rather than read marketing as such. But I have read Kotler and whatever. But Jesse's was one of the first book I picked up, which is No Money Marketing. And to be able to talk to her 10 years after that book came out, and really talk about everything that she was talking about, because she was such a pioneer. I mean, she started talking about social media and like being active on social media back in 2007 2008, right, when not a lot of brands were open to it, and they were really slow to catch on. So for me, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to her about how marketing has changed. So she was the ex CMO at Wipro. She headed marketing at iGate. She was also part of the core marketing team at Infi, right? So that's a wealth of experience, and I was really, really stunned by how much she's relevant even now, from her time with the services to right now with SaaS, right? One of those
Yeah.
people who's got very keen insights on everything that's happening at this point of time. And yeah, I was really, really fortunate to talk to her. This is a must listen for anyone remotely connected with marketing. So I'd say couple of really great episodes coming up, guys. Please don't miss this.
All right. Um, Great. So that brings us to the end of this week's roundup, Roshan. Thanks everyone who has joined in live with us. Roshan, I think you'd like to say to our listeners right now.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on another episode. We're trying to put out good content out there. And if you like the content, please don't forget to subscribe and share. We'd like to reach more people. And also, please give us your feedback, what we should do more of, what we should do less of. And hope to catch you guys on another weekly roundup next week.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, guys, let us know what you think of how we are doing. You need to evaluate us while we evaluate how startups are doing. So yeah, tweet to us at the rate operator startup, or reach out to us via LinkedIn. With that, we come to the end of another amazing week, and we'll be seeing you again next Friday, 7 o'clock. Take care, guys.
All
Good
right.
night.
Bye. See ya.